I'm joined now by Katie Coleman, partner at Hughes, Hubbard & Reed. Katie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We've been talking about distressed investing and bankruptcies. Can you tell us if you've seen any kind of a trend as far as bankruptcies have gone lately?
Well, I think what's been happening is since the Bankruptcy Code was amended in 2005 to make cases shorter and to essentially force resolution, really at the behest of creditor lobbies, debtors have started seeing their creditors get very sophisticated and very aggressive in terms of constraining what companies can do in bankruptcy. It used to be the case, and it wasn't always a good thing, that companies would file Chapter 11 and then sort of figure out what to do. Nowadays, that's really not possible. Now the trend is toward having a deal worked out with the creditors, most of the creditors anyway, beforehand, then filing bankruptcy to implement the solution. There's not a lot of time in bankruptcy anymore for operational restructurings or fixing any kind of business problems. It's really becoming more and more a tool to fix financial problems. Too much debt, for example, is a very good example. Maybe some unfavorable contracts with labor. Those kinds of things are what we're seeing getting dealt with first and before the filing, and then the filing happens. The problem with that, in my view, as a company side lawyer usually, is that quite often the lenders are dictating every little item that happens in the case, and there's no room for creativity or flexibility or for value to kind of rise on its own. The value is determined largely by the creditors at the beginning of the case, and the value is then hacked up in accordance with the way bankruptcy law works, which is secured creditors first, and then unsecured creditors, and then finally, if there's anything left, back to old equity. But what we're seeing is kind of the development of a playbook, if you will, that doesn't really leave a lot of room for kismet, if you will, or any kind of creativity. And I think that could be a problem.
Would you say that's the greatest challenge that you're seeing?
I think so. The challenge, well, and you have to make a distinction between really big cases and the smaller cases, cases where revenues are between, say, 200 million and 800 million a year versus the mega cases. In the mega cases, there's a lot of money out there. There's a lot of liquidity, and companies have money available to them, and they have options available to them, such that if one lender who's willing to finance the case isn't willing to play ball and isn't willing to allow the debtor to do what it wants to do in bankruptcy, they can go to another one. That's not the case in a lot of middle market cases. In a lot of middle market cases, your only source for financing after you file is the lender you had before you filed. And the lender takes this need to file bankruptcy as, and sometimes the lender even encourages the filing of bankruptcy because the lender can then get additional protections once the case is filed.
So until there are other changes, this is the way it's going to be for the foreseeable future.
I think so. I think it's going only more in this direction, which in some cases is great, and in some cases probably dooms a restructuring that could have been effectuated otherwise. It's simply the constraints on timing and constraints on ability to keep existing management even when you want to. You simply can't pay them, and you can't give them enough assurances to not go take another job with a more stable company that isn't in Chapter 11. Those two things are really conspiring to make it a very difficult choice to file Chapter 11.
Interesting changes.
Indeed.
Okay, Katie, thank you so much for being with us.
Very well.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.